What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 30 of the Elephant Wire Podcast, the show we break down song lyrics and don't play you a damn second of the song because major labels are thieving babies that would sue us up the ass. This week's episode, we're going to be dissecting the song Use Somebody by Kings of Leon. Let's fucking get some.
Welcome to the Elephant Wire Podcast. Music. Drugs. Laughter. Lyrics.
Welcome, one and all, to episode 30. We are officially halfway through this season. It has been a good time so far. I feel like it takes me about this long to get into a rhythm, and then all of a sudden the season's over and I got to do it all over again. But yeah, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. We'll just keep drinking beers and having a good time. Gotta love that high life. I'm pretty excited about the episode today. In fact, this was a little bit of an interesting one. I didn't know I was going to be doing this song until right whenever I started actually writing the episode, because I originally wanted to do a song off of it would have been their second full album called Aha Shake Heartbreak. It's my favorite album by them. However, the second I started researching songs, I found out almost every song on that album is about hooking up with a 17-year-old. Now, they got started pretty young. They were like 16 to 18 years old. So, at any rate, I wasn't going to touch that with a fucking 30-foot pool cue. Like that, not a chance. I realized when they wrote those songs, they were relative to that age. However, that being said, I'm not that age, and anyone that would just tune in like in the middle, and all of a sudden I'm talking about, she was 17 and she was so hot. Even that, I mean, that little snippet could be taken just very out of context and turned and twisted, and yeah. So we decided we're going to go with a different song by them. However, you should absolutely check out the album Aha Shake Heartbreak. It is a fantastic album. It is a good time. But let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. Kings of Leon, rock band from Nashville, Tennessee, started in 1999. It's three brothers, Caleb, Nathan, and Jared. The last name Followill. It's a fun last name. And then their cousin, Matthew, also with the last name Followill. So yeah, you got three brothers and a cousin. It's pretty easy to figure out that they grew up together. That's how they ended up being a band together. But their early years, like the earlier couple albums by Kings of Leon, very much so. It's very southern rock, very garage rock, very heavily blues influenced. And then over the years, as time went on, they kind of their genres kind of became more alternative. And then anymore, especially the song that we're doing today, anymore they're more like what would be arena rock. And one of my dogs is deciding to just cut up and be a goober. That's my dog Steve, by the way. He's a good guy. But anyway, we got three brothers. We got Caleb, Nathan, and Jared, and they grew up in kind of the Oklahoma, Tennessee area. They lived in Jackson, Tennessee for a little bit, which Johnny Cash has a great song about Jackson, going down to Jackson, which I'm sure they're big fans of. But they traveled all over the South. Their dad was a traveling Pentecostal preacher, and so their dad's name was Ivan, and as Ivan was traveling around preaching and going church to church all over the South, his boys were with him, and mom was with him. I forget her name. I think it was like Betty or some Betty Ann maybe. Very, very southern shit. Every now and again, his boys would be called upon to play some tunes, and all throughout their childhood, they were either homeschooled or they were, enrolled in these small church-run schools. And they spent their entire childhood traveling all over the South in an old Oldsmobile. They'd spend 2 weeks at a church, and they'd set up camp, like living in tents. And they'd set up camp. Their dad would do some preaching, and then they'd go on to the next place, and then the next place, and then the next place. And they grew up in this environment pretty much most of their childhood, if not all of it, until 1997. When their father resigned from preaching and their parents ended up getting a divorce. So when that happened, Nathan and Caleb, the two older brothers, they ended up moving to Nashville, and they originally became big country music fans. While they were there, they met this guy by the name of Angelo Petraglia. Petralia. Cool name. But they met him, and he ended up actually helping them really hone their songwriting skills. And as their career's gone on, Angelo is credited. He has a lot of writing credits. As you start looking at albums that Kings of Leon has released, they kept in touch with him and still are to this day, as just being a mentor to their music career. And just a little tidbit: Kings of Leon, they named it after their grandfather, Leon. Awesome. Every now and again when I'm fucking with someone I meet that is a big Kings of Leon fan, I call him Kings of Leonard, but once I found out it was named after their grandfather, all right, I respect that. Kings of Leon it is. But in the very early years, Nathan and Caleb, the two older brothers living outside of Nashville, just playing music and making it work and scrimping and surviving. Originally, they were approached by a couple, like honestly, a few music labels, and they ended up signing with RCA. Now, that being said, before signing with RCA really wanted the band to just be the two of them, and they told RCA, they're like, look, this isn't a 2-man gig. I tell you what, we're gonna go get our little brother. We're going to give him a bass. He's a freshman in high school. He'll figure it out. And, we'll go grab our cousin. And he played guitar when he was like 10. And then I'll play the drums. And they just like said all this. And I can only imagine the record label being like, okay, like, well, this better fucking work. So they said, all right, we'll come down in a month and we'll see you guys and we'll see where you guys are at. So, later on, as the story goes on, they end up, in a manner of speaking, kidnapping their cousin. Like, they drive down to Mississippi where their cousin was living, and they want him to join the band, and they even told his mom, they're like, oh, he's only going to be gone for a week. Like, we're just going to take him back to Nashville, and he'll be gone for a week. That was not the case, and they knew that in the time, and their cousin Matthew also knew this in the moment, that was not going to be the case. They took him back to Nashville, and I have an actual quote here that says, "We locked ourselves in the basement with an ounce of weed and literally spent a month down there. My mom would bring us food, and at the end of that month, the label came by and we had an EP." And obviously it worked. They signed with RCA, and they've been flying ever since. Outstanding. The song we're talking about today, it comes off of their album Only by Night. And it's funny, of all the research that I did on these guys, I knew that they were big in the US. Like I knew that for a fact. And it was literally this album and almost this song exactly that fucking skyrocketed them to the position that they ended up being. And yes, they'd had quite a few accolades and they were well known before this. However, once this song and this album were released, that was when things fucking took off. But whenever Only by Night was released, the reception of the album was interesting because the British press in like the UK was, and that was actually where I was going with that. I never actually finished my thought. I knew that they were big in the US. They are gods in the UK. I had no idea how popular these guys are in the UK. Every album they've released has done better over there than it's done here. It's absolutely crazy. Because, like I was just about to say, I got too excited and I didn't finish my thought. The British press was all about this album and just giving it rave reviews. How in the US, it's a little more mixed. It's not like their early stuff, which if that's not the most US thing that you can do to a band. But in 2008, that's when this album was released. It was one of the producers on this album was that same guy, Angelo Petraglia. And it entered the UK charts at number 1, and it remained there for an entire week in 2008. It had a 2 week or it had 2 single week stints as the UK number 1 album in 2009. One of those was directly after the Brit Awards, where they ended up going home with a couple of those. And in the US, the album was number 4 on the Billboard 200, which is pretty fucking solid in 2009. The album was named UK's 3rd biggest selling album of 2008, and it was the biggest selling album in Australia. Like this, overseas, their music just fucking exploded. It was absolutely crazy. And like I said, I didn't know that until I started researching for this episode, that I was like, oh my God, like they are huge in the UK and also Australia, apparently. And it's really funny. And, I think one thing that came to mind when I was thinking about this was, anytime you are overseas, you're talking to someone from overseas, and you ask them, that speaks English, you ask them to do an American accent, they almost always will do something Nashville or Texas. Like they almost always go country music every time. And it's so funny how that ends up working out, because, the majority of the US does not talk like that. So it's funny then to think, a band that, yes, they're pretty big in the U.S. They really are. And they've been headlining shows and doing, huge tours for quite a while now. But when it really comes down to it, I honestly have to chalk it up to the voice. I really do. Not the show. That show's bullshit. And yes, we love Gwen Stefani on this podcast, but that's besides the point. It has to come down to the way that the songs are being sung, in my opinion. It really does, because when I start thinking about it, like I said, until I researched, I didn't realize how big they were over there, and I started to put it all together, and I was like, well, people in England and in Scotland and Wales and Ireland and all these places, for some reason, they just love that accent. That has to be it. Because it is really good music to boot. And that's another thing, that in the UK, if it's not good music, they don't really give a shit. So it kind of had both things going for them. It ended up working out. So good for them. Good for them. But the song we're talking about today, Use Somebody, it's track 4 of 11 off of the album. And I remember very vividly when this song came out, because I had, at that time I was listening to very different music from Kings of Leon. However, I was kind of starting to go into a blues phase, a little bit, just slightly going into a blues phase. And like I said, I remember when this song came out, and I remember mentioning to a friend how much I liked it, and he was like, "Oh, well, then you will definitely like their early albums." And that ended up being where I went, and it wasn't out of like, oh, well, their early stuff's better. It had nothing to do with that at all. I was just like, oh, Use Somebody, that's a really good song. And then they were like, oh, you should listen to their early albums, and I fell in love with them. And I ended up kind of forgetting that they were writing new music. It had nothing to do with being too cool or any of those things. It had everything to do with the fact that was just the music that I ended up leaning toward, and there I was. And as many bands, I was actually talking to my good buddy Mike DeWitt about this the other night. As many bands as I have done that, I've staked my claim, I've planted my flag, and been like, I'm not going to listen to their new stuff. Their older stuff is where it's at. That's where it's at. I didn't actually do that with this band. It just kind of worked out that way. And it like I said, it had everything to do with the era when this song came out. And it was the second single released off of Only by Night. Comes in at 3 minutes, 51 seconds. It was a huge success in the U.S. Multiple formats reaching number 1, Hot 100, number 1 pop charts. Like the list of where this song ended up goes on and on and on. But once again, when we were talking about mixed reviews in the U.S., Entertainment Weekly called this song a highlight of the album. However, they called it a too cool hipster's cry for comfort. Which, they're not wrong. That is, if you just kind of take it at face value, that is kind of what it sounds like. But I'm very excited to get into the lyrics for this song because we're gonna find some shit. We really are. We're gonna find some real shit. It's gonna be a good time. But once again, in the UK, You Somebody peaked at number 2 on the singles chart and spent an unbroken 40 weeks on the chart. Unbroken to this day. It only dropped out of the singles chart for a week because of a surge in sales from Michael Jackson's titles, like right after he died. Like that, this is the area that we're talking about. The era, not area. The era that we're talking about. Right after Michael Jackson died, Michael Jackson came onto the charts and it bumped him off for a second. But that was only for a week, and they came right back on for another 20 weeks. Absolutely outstanding. The UK loves these guys. At the same time, they did get their credit in the US. They really did, because of the 2010 Grammys. Use Somebody was nominated for Song of the Year. It won Record of the Year. It won Best Rock Song of the Year. And it won Best Rock Performance by a Duo or a Group. They took home 3 Grammys in 2010, all based off of this song and this album. That's some real shit. That's some good times. But before we get to the lyrics, I just wanted to toss out there one other interview that I was watching with these guys. I think it was for Guitar World magazine. They were just doing a breakdown about this song, and it was really funny because the first 35, 40 seconds of the video is Matt, the cousin, and Caleb, the lead singer, who's the oldest brother. They're kind of fighting back and forth about who actually wrote the song. And then by the time it gets to like 3-4 minutes into the video, you find out they're kind of both right, because Matthew, the cousin, he ended up actually writing what ended up being the vocal harmony or the melody for this song. And he was dead certain. He's like, I have it in GarageBand. I have it in there. It's before you ever wrote this song. I swear to God, I have it. And then Caleb talking about the night that he actually wrote the lyrics for this song and wrote the song, which we will get into very in depth here in a minute. But it was really funny that even though they had that short-lived argument, just kind of, it was definitely out of fun, and it was all in good humor. But and then Caleb talking about how deeply personal that the lyrics were in the moment and the time when he wrote them, they both agreed that the song was absolutely nothing until they wrote the background vocal part. The song was nothing until they wrote that. And they were referencing how there's in there when the interview was recorded, as they went back through their discography, they could only pick out one other song that had a background vocal part. And they were talking about how on songs like that, when they can tell that the song's going to be something, like it's going to become something, that's when they realize they all kind of need to come together, and they all have to be a part of it. That way, as it takes off, they're all equally, and like I said, it's funny that they spent the first part of the interview arguing about who actually wrote the song. But that's the thing. I mean, they're brothers and a cousin. Like, they might as well just all be 4 brothers at this point. They know full well that unless they all succeed, then they're not going to succeed. And I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a fun little tidbit before we really get into the lyric breakdown. I've been roaming around, always looking down at all I see. Painted faces fill the places I can't reach. You know that I could use somebody. You know that I could use somebody. Someone like you, in all you know and how you speak. Countless lovers under cover of the street. You know that I could use somebody. Someone like you. Off in the night, while you live it up, I'm off to sleep. Waging wars to shape the poet and the beat. I hope it's gonna make you notice. I hope it's gonna make you notice someone like me. Somebody. I'm ready now. Someone like you. Somebody. I've been roaming around, always looking down at all I see. Caleb talks about writing the lyrics to this song when he was drugged out of his gourd and drinking some whiskey after getting some surgery. And I don't know a better recipe for honesty if I really think about it. That's some tell the truth juice right there. All drugged up after surgery and then start hitting the whiskey. You're gonna write some pretty honest lyrics, and as we start going through these, this is some pretty transparent shit. It really is, and so right off the bat, I mean, it at face value, you can take this song as I'm too proud to ask for help when I need it, and and if that is the take that you want to take on this song, that is perfectly fine. Honestly, if that's the take on this song that you want to keep, I would suggest fast forwarding for the next about 20 minutes. Because as I started going through these lyrics, I started noticing a theme, and I was like, hang on a second. Is he really? No. But here we go. I've been roaming around, always looking down at all I see. Looking down on people, and having this, this thinking of himself, or thinking more of himself than he does of others, and thinks he's better or he's too good for them. The way that he's saying this, and the way he's singing it, and the inflection in his voice, I've been roaming around, always looking down at all I see. He's had this air about him, and he could even be talking about recent history, since Kings of Leon had started to get more popular, that he kind of viewed himself as too good for anyone. And it sounds as if he's saying it in a regretful way. It really does. And like I said, that's based purely off of his voice inflection and in the way that he's choosing to say this. And then we start to get into, like I said, some serious transparency here. Painted faces fill the places I can't reach. This is kind of the first inkling to what I am damn near sure that this song is talking about. And it kind of makes sense with the first line as we continue going this. Painted faces fill the places I can't reach. This has connotations of makeup, of wearing a lot of makeup, painted faces. And it's in an interesting way, because it almost makes me think that he's talking about a call girl, or a sex worker, or a lady of the night, or a prostitute, or whatever you would like to call them. Because the very next two lines, that I could use somebody. Ooh, I could use somebody. And the second I started to think that this is actually what he's talking about. I mean, like I said, he's sitting on his couch. Think about it for a second. He's sitting on his couch. He's drugged up. He's slugging whiskey. He's in the mood for a little action. So where did his mind go? A place that it clearly has been before. And like I said, now, does this first line now make sense to us a little more? If we're taking it at that face value of just like, oh, I've been too proud, I could use somebody. In that sense, yeah, it still works there. And like I said, if that's the way that you would like to think about this song, I have no qualms with that at all. In fact, as the years go on, that's probably how in the moment I'll just like kind of think about it until I really start to like, oh yeah, that's right, I did do a episode on this song one time. But when he says painted faces fill the places I can't reach. And he says that right after saying, I've been roaming around looking down at all I see. It kind of makes me think that he's referencing a time where in the moment he went to go find himself somebody. He went to go find a lady of the night. He went to go find a sex worker. And even going into it thinking like, oh my God, like I am so much better than this. Like I can't believe this is where I am. But I could use somebody. And once again, this next line was where, once I got to this point, I was like, okay, I'm pretty, these next few lines, honestly, this is where I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is what he's talking about. Because the next line we got here is someone like you and all you know and how you speak. So there's one thing we definitely know about sex workers is that they're really good at their job. They're really good at it. They are. So someone like you and all you know. And then the next line, and how you speak. This is something that probably not a lot of people know. And I've run with some pretty interesting fellas over the years, being a bartender and just like mixing it up in the scenes that I have. I've known quite a few dudes that have called upon a sex worker in various ways, fashions. And every single one of them will tell you, more often than not, a sex worker is actually really good at talking to someone. And I'm not even being sarcastic right now. I'm serious. Sex workers are really good at conversation. It's the same way that a server at a restaurant is really good at making you feel like, you know, what you want to talk about is so funny. Or a bartender or a stripper. Strippers are really good at making you think that they're into you and that everything you have to say is interesting. And it's flattering in the moment. It really is. Because the very next line that he says here is, countless lovers under cover of the street. For fuck's sake, people, he's talking about getting a fucking hooker. He is. You know that I could use somebody. He's sitting. It sounds a little bit like he almost has this void. And he doesn't even intend on filling the actual legitimate void. He just wants to mask the void. Like, he knows that this void in him is that he really wants someone who will actually fill that void, that will actually think that his conversation is interesting. Someone that he does feel that he's on the same level playing field with. And I don't agree with someone that thinks that sex workers are below them. I don't think that at all. I think they're underpaid. I think they're under health cared, under health core, whatever it is. They should be getting benefits. I'm not even going to get into the sex worker conversation really, but when it comes down to it, we are not better than a sex worker. When I finish this episode, I'm going to take a shower and rub one out and stomp it down the drain. What's any different than a sex worker that helps people do that? There's nothing wrong with it. Jesus Christ. And what's wrong with this? Nothing. The guy likes to go get hookers. Big fucking deal. And like I said, it sounds like he has a legitimate void there. He actually, there's something in him that he really would truly prefer to fill. But instead, he's just gonna have sex. He ends that part with someone like you. He has someone in mind, maybe someone that he has found before. And even beyond that, as we continue into verse 2 here, off in the night, while you live it up, I'm off to sleep. Now, you can only sit on your couch taking pain pills after surgery, drinking whiskey for so long until you're going to fucking crash. I mean, you're not going to make it very late into the evening. And he kind of calls himself out on it. Off in the night while you live it up, I'm off to sleep. Waging wars to shape the poet and the beat. So everything that he has said up to now, where does he actually land on this evening? He's going to sit at home. He's going to play some guitar. He's going to write some songs. While the woman that he planned on calling, the woman that he chases, you know, this woman that that he could use, it sounds really horrible to say it that way, but that's the way he's been saying it the whole song. You know that I could use somebody. While this woman's off in the night and having a blast and having a good time. Now, let me also say this. I highly, highly doubt that he is going down to the red light district and just picking up the first girl on a corner. I highly doubt that's how he's doing this. I have a good friend of mine that on a work trip one time was put up in a very, very nice hotel. And that night he was like, all right, I'm going to go check out the hotel bar because, you know, when am I ever going to be at a bar like this again? Like, these aren't the places that I frequent. Within 2 minutes of sitting down at the bar, all of a sudden, this gorgeous woman sits down next to him and starts talking to him and telling him how funny he is and how smart he is. And he's not an idiot. He knew exactly what was going on. And so in the conversation he brought up, he's like, hey, I can only assume, you know, why you're sitting here. I'm not interested, and I'd hate to take away business from you. So, you know, like, I have no problem with you just getting up right now and hating me. And she's like, oh, actually, it's kind of dry tonight. And so they just sat there and talked. And he asked her questions about how everything goes and how it all works and everything like that and her intentions. And yeah, she was in law school, but lawyers don't make as much as she does. I would only assume that these are the types of girls that he's talking about at the moment. Not that one is better than the other. Also not my point. I'm just saying there are tiers of, never mind. God, I've dug myself a hole at this point. If I could make my point very clear, I love sex workers. I think they're beautiful human beings. I think they're misinterpreted, misunderstood, misread. They deserve health care. But he says waging wars to shape the poet and the beat. He's not going to call her. He's going to sit on his couch. He's going to play some guitar. He's going to write another song. But he does have an ulterior motive, because the next couple lines he makes here are, I hope it's going to make you notice. I hope it's going to make you notice someone like me. I hope that next time I come around that maybe I get that discount, because I am Caleb and I'm the lead singer of Kings of Leon. And he ends the song by saying, somebody, I'm ready now. Someone like you. He's kind of going back and forth as he's ending the song of just like, oh, should I call her? Like, maybe I got another hour in me. No, I'm going to bed. And he ends the song with that repeated line, I've been roaming around, always looking down at all I see. And maybe the point of this story is not so much what his desires are. Maybe the point of this story is more so that he's beaten himself up in the past over the desires that he had. Maybe the point of this story is that he spent too much time telling himself that he's better than what he chooses to find his fun in, or however you want to say it. And as he gets to the end of the song, he's really being contemplative and really saying to himself, you know what? I'm not too good for this. I'm not. This is me. This is the person that I am. And I think self-awareness is actually kind of the point of the song. And once again, I hate if this is a song that has been a big song for you, or you've been a fan of this song for a long time, and I've completely changed the connotation of it. I apologize. I really do. Because at the same time, this is just my take on it. It's arbitrary. It's completely founded in nothing other than I saw a theme. That's literally all. That's all it is. If you want to continue to listen to the song and be like, oh, it's about being too proud to ask for help, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just when you get to certain lines in the song, you might have a little trouble translating them, other than he's going to call a hooker. I honestly, after researching this song, I actually love it even more now because of the transparency of it and because of the honesty of it. And knowing that in the state that he was in whenever he wrote the lyrics, he wasn't going to do anything but be honest. I think that's fantastic. I think this is a great song. I love Kings of Leon even more after researching this episode. I hope their career continues many, many years to come and keeps writing hits and good tunes, and I love it. Also, just those first two albums, I just love good Nashville rock. On that topic, if you feel like looking up another Nashville rock band, there's a great band called The Wans that are fantastic. They write just some good Nashville rock tunes. I love Nashville rock as a genre. It's super dope. But enough of that. It's now time for the local band spotlight, and this week we have Endless Midnight. What is up, boys? Endless Midnight, alternative metal band from New Jersey. Some good Jersey boys. There's been a shit ton of good music come out of New Jersey. You ever want to be thoroughly impressed? Just Google bands that have come out of New Jersey, and you will be, like I said, you will be thoroughly impressed by how many bands have come out of New Jersey. And actually, whenever they start listed, well, I'll just keep reading here. Metal band from New Jersey with influences of goth rock, punk rock, industrial metal, new metal, and all sorts of other fun shit. We write songs about emotions, religion, death, murder, mutilated corpses, and being pretty. Our sound is heavily influenced by bands such as My Chemical Romance, Nine Inch Nails, Joy Division, Korn, Beck, and many others, with a combination of some heavy shit and some less heavy sounding shit that deals with heavy themes. I like that. I like that a lot. Heavy shit and less heavy shit that deals with heavy themes. That's good times. I like that a whole bunch. We plan to release some catchy singles this summer and follow that up with an album releasing on major platforms in October. So keep an eye out for that from Endless Midnight. Times have been confusing as shit, but hopefully we will get in some shows and have our nice little spooky band vibe. Thanks for listening about our band, and hopefully y'all will check us out and we can be a cool band and shit. I like these guys. Endless Midnight, alternative metal band from New Jersey. Fucking A, boys. Get some. Keep it going. I love it. Thank you so much for being the local band spotlight this week. We're definitely going to add some of your tunes, or one of your tunes, to our local bands that don't suck playlist. We'll be posting about them all week, pictures and just all sorts of everything. But support local music, friends. I say it every week. Support local music, and if you like what we do here at the Elephant Wire Podcast, you can support us as well by going to anchor.fm/the Elephant Wire Podcast. You can support us monthly. You can follow us on YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on just anywhere. One of the things that would be an enormous help for us, honestly, even more than cash monies, even more than that, would be going on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts and throwing us a 5-star rating. That would be absolutely outstanding. We all, at the moment, last time I checked, we only had one review on Apple Podcasts, and it was a 5-star rating, and the person that rated called me a douche canoe, which was fucking tight. I love that. I kind of want to get t-shirts made. But if another way that you can support the Elephant Wire Podcast, you can go to our website, theelephantwire.com. You can go to our store. We got t-shirts up there. We got a whole bunch of stickers. You can throw us a one-time gift to say thank you for what we do here. Fuck the suits. I haven't talked about them in a while because I live my life as if they don't exist. And, they do their best to hold us down. But, like we end every episode, fuck the man. Hail Satan, hug. Yeah. Let me try that again. Fuck the man. Hail Satan, hug your mom. We'll catch you guys next week. Peace.